On the very fringe of the Roman Empire, in the province of Judea, life for the Hebrew people was not easy. The soil was dry and made for a meager harvest. Add to that the taxes, social pressures, and political restraints placed on them by Rome, and the anxiety of the people was palpable. The Jews were steeped in their faith. For them, religion was not just a common ritual or event, it was their life. Ringing in the ears of the common person was the prophecy of a coming king. A child would be born from the line of David that would rise up and deliver them from the oppression of Rome and establish an eternal kingdom. Expectations were high. It wasn't but 30 years earlier that the Roman established king, Herod the Great, had put to death all males 2 years of age and younger from Bethlehem and the surrounding province in an attempt to destroy this coming king of the Jews. Growing up in the small farm town of Nazareth, a young man took on the trade of his father, a carpenter. As a Jew, he was brought up in the teaching of the Torah and would often be found at the temple. From the standpoint of the average person, most would not consider this young man to be anything special. Yet, in the span of just 3 years, the life and teachings of this one man would change the course of history forever. Who do you think Jesus claimed to be?
Jesus actually never claimed to be anybody.
You know, I haven't actually read the Bible. Me and religion don't get along.
I don't know if he really claimed anything, but whether or not he's God, whether or not he's an incarnation of God, doesn't matter to me, because in either case, I'm still going to follow his teachings.
Jesus made it very clear that he was the Messiah that was promised in, for example, in Isaiah 53, the suffering servant that was to come to redeem us for our sin. Jesus claimed to be God incarnate when he said, I and the Father are one. There was absolutely no question in people's minds what Jesus was claiming to be.
It was his claims to be the Son of God. It was his claims to be equal with God, to do the things that God did. Those claims were the ones on which they plotted and began the plot to kill him.
In John 14:6, Jesus says of himself, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. What do you think he was claiming about himself?
That's a claim of what Jesus said. From what I know of Jesus' teachings, that sounds like a pretty egotistical thing to say, and I think those are words put in his mouth.
There's such a thing as anonymous Christianity, so even the atheist who loves is in a sense following the teachings of Jesus, and so that person would die and be embraced into heaven.
The Jews of his day believed in God, Yahweh, the God of Israel, and for the most part believed that they were right with God, and Jesus is making a shocking counterclaim that that knowledge is inadequate if it does not also accept Jesus, if he is not the one who is now followed in discipleship as the representative of God, as the heaven-sent one.
He was threatened with blasphemy when people worshiped him, and worship, of course, is something that you only can do to God, and the other actions that Jesus did, not just his words, but his actions, where he forgave sin, was something that only God could do. So this is extremely important that he made this very clear to people at the time. And he made it clear for a very specific reason. He wanted people to understand, as he said, that he is the way, the truth, and the life, that no one comes to the Father except by him.
Do you believe that Jesus came back to life after his crucifixion?
It's a big if.
There is a God. I believe in God. I don't believe in the story of Jesus.
I don't believe that in any kind of literal sense. I believe people can resurrect images from the past and use them in whatever ways they want.
I guess that's the whole foundation, the fundamental belief of the mystery, but I'm not sure if I believe that or not.
They tell the story in different ways in the four Gospels, yet all four writers agree that women were the first witnesses to the resurrection. Yet in most Jewish courts of law, women's witness was inadmissible. If someone was simply making up a legendary story, they wouldn't all agree that women were the first witnesses.
we find that Jesus appeared, for example, to the disciples, and he showed them his wounds. We know that Thomas, for example, said that he wouldn't believe unless he could touch Jesus and put his hand in his side and touch the nail prints, for example. So Jesus wanted us to know that his resurrection was in fact physical.
It is hard to account for the rise of Christian faith apart from the resurrection. A group of Jewish disciples, followers of Jesus, would have believed, because of his death by crucifixion, that he was cursed by God, in light of a statement in Deuteronomy 21:23 that cursed is anyone who hangs on a tree. Something dramatic had to change their opinion of Jesus.
If Jesus rose from the dead, what difference does that make for us today?
I don't think that would have any relevance for me today.
Did he have to die and rise? Well, I don't think so, because look at all the people who lived pre-Jesus. No, but God chose to do it that way, and that's cool.
The role of Jesus on this earth was to bring us back into a relationship with God through forgiveness of our sin because of his sacrifice, and the resurrection verified that he was exactly what he claimed to be, and that we could have this enormous gift.
Believing in the resurrection and living in the resurrection simply means that that spiritual power gives us victory in our lives. For those who are on drugs, we know that Jesus sets people free. Through spiritual deliverance, he sets people free. Through people whose minds don't know which way to go, this life of Christ gives us the truth that we can make right decisions in life, to love one another and not to hate and not to murder, not to kill. And so it really enters into every area of our life daily, this resurrection power.
But if the story is true, then it means that this life is just
Messiah.